this afternoon. So at last night's council meeting, there were several topics of discussion that involved the police department. One of those topics was the Alexis Scott case, and towards the end of the council meeting, the mayor brought up that we would have a press conference today and just update the community as to where we are and what we've done up to this point. So that's the main focus of being here today. But I also want to cover some of the accusations that were made last night that I have answers and found out what happened and stuff. So at the end of, after talking about Alexis's case, I will go into the accusations that were made by some of the speakers last night at council. So with the Alexis case, first of all, this is still an open investigation. So it is very sensitive, and it's a difficult case. I do have all the feelings for April and the family. I can't imagine what they're going through. So I want to start off by saying that before I roll into everything that we've done in this. So, you know, as the police department, the detectives that are working the case, the command staff, we understand the importance of the case and what the family is going through, and we definitely feel for the family and understand their frustration, because if it was my family, I'd be frustrated as well if we're not having any luck of finding her. So I want to start off with that. So with the case, we have one OIC, which is the officer involved with the case. So you have a detective that is in charge of it, but then you also have secondary detectives that are involved in the case. So in all, we've pulled in additional detectives that were assisting in the case as well. And then we also have two supervisors that are involved in the case, and actually the lieutenant of the Criminal Investigations Division, Lieutenant Mike Boland, who's sitting on my right, is also actively involved in staying up to date on this case as well. So let me go into the timeline. When you got here, everyone was handed out a timeline, and one of the things, when you look at it, a lot of information has been redacted, meaning specific names and stuff have been taken out, certain locations may have been taken out, just to protect the integrity of the investigation and to protect the individuals that we've talked to, because we can't release their information. So I actually want to go through, because not everyone's going to be able to get this, so I want to go through the timeline with you, and because it is being live streamed, so that at his home, and Alexis stops by her house to change clothes prior to being dropped off at 125 Richmond by another person. And it is kind of hard to leave out the names as I'm reading this, but hopefully you'll understand why. At approximately 5:09 a.m., Alexis is dropped off at 125 Richmond by an individual. At approximately 7:12 a.m., a person leaves the party in her black SUV, leaving another person at the party. At approximately 7:12, two individuals arrive at the party for the first time. After a short time, they leave to go to the liquor store, but return again at approximately 7:34 a.m. and park across the street from 125 Richmond. At 7:49 a.m., an individual moves his Impala from the front of the house to the rear alley as everyone in the front yard moves to the back of the house. At 8:15 a.m., the black Impala leaves from out of the alley, and according to a couple of individuals, it was them leaving individuals. A person was not at the party either of the times that they were at the party. They both said they don't know who Alexis is. So then we fast forward to 4:30 in the afternoon. The Fulton County Fire Department, not Sheriff's Office, the Fulton County Fire Department is called for a mattress and carpet set on fire at a property located in Canton, Illinois. So now we move forward to September 27th. April Scott files a missing persons report with Officer Irving. Officer Irving begins investigating by talking to a couple of the last known people to be seen with her. On October 1st, at approximately 4 o'clock, Detective Matt Rogers, who is the OIC of the case, receives the case for the first time, and he spoke to April about the case. Detective Rogers and Detective Calbo then went to 125 Richmond, which was her last known location that she was seen, and spoke with an individual there. At that time, Detective Rogers gained consent and searched the residence, including the backyard. Still on October 1st, Detective Rogers obtained from a friend of Alexis her Facebook page so that he could start monitoring it. That way we'd be up to speed if she's starting getting messages or if she's sending messages out from Facebook. Because one of the things, she did not have a cell phone. She was using Wi-Fi, so it's not like we could track a cell phone. So she would communicate by Messenger on Facebook. So we began monitoring her Facebook page. He also spoke to another individual. On October 2nd, he met with a person at their residence and spoke with another person on the phone who lives in Chicago. He also spoke with another individual. On October 3rd, he interviewed 2 more individuals, this time at the police department. On October 4th, he interviewed another individual at the police department and also obtained a consent to search of his music studio located in Peoria. Later on October 4th, he spoke to a neighbor of an individual who stated that the boat in Luttrell's yard had been there for months and she had not seen it leave. On October 4th, he obtained video footage from cameras at specific locations. And I didn't put those locations in there because I didn't want locations known that we're looking at video because of angles and whatnot. On October 7th, he obtained the video footage from the Aqua Car Wash there on Knoxville in Richmond. Then on October 10th, spoke again to an individual and then went out to the county jail and spoke to another individual. On October 11th, Detective Rogers spoke to a taxi driver for Big Daddy Cab who said she dropped Alexis off at 125 Richmond at around 4 a.m. on September 23rd. On October 11th, he spoke a second time with a person at her residence. On October 14th, Detective Rogers spoke with April Scott at her residence and attempted to gain consent to look through Alexis's bedroom for anything that could help to locate her. April refused to allow consent and said that he needed a warrant. A couple months later, April did give permission to go through Alexis's room and nothing was located that was significant. On October 16th, he interviewed another individual at the police department. On October 17th, an escort service ad for Alexis from August 27th was found on Backpage out of Las Vegas. The date listed on the ad were only for the dates that she was actually in Las Vegas. On October 18th, we executed a search warrant at 125 Richmond. He also spoke with a person about being missing. We can clarify what that is.
It was a person in reference to Alexis being missing.
Okay. Then now in November, on November 11th, spoke to another person who is a good friend and co-worker of Alexis. On November 21st, he interviewed another individual at the police department. On November 28th, information was received about a Craigslist ad for prostitution in Chicago. At that time, the FBI sex trafficking unit was contacted and an agent with that unit was spoken to out of Chicago and given all the information on Alexis's case. On December 4th, cadaver dogs were taken to 125 Richmond and to another location to search the yards. On December 11th, an interview was conducted at the police department, actually 2 separate interviews on December 11th. On December 19th, an individual comes forward. On December 21st, a search warrant was executed for the property in Canton where the mattress was burned. On December 23rd, officers went to Canton and spoke to neighbor witnesses to the mattress fire. So individuals that saw the mattress fire, they went there and spoke to them. Also attempted to locate the unknown witness who was on a four-wheeler. On January 3rd, detectives searched approximately 6 miles on foot between Hillside Drive and East Gardner Lane due to information that was obtained from a medium/psychic, and nothing was located. On January 8th, spoke to a female at a location who allegedly had information on Alexis. Information obtained was verified through the FBI Sex Trafficking Task Force. We talked to that agent again, and that information was unfounded. On January 10th, video was obtained from a location of 2 individuals buying items at that location. On January 17th, detectives met with an individual and interviewed him at that location. On February 5th, met with an individual at the police department, and he took a polygraph test, which he failed. Then they also interviewed another individual. On March 5th, at approximately 11:15 a.m., a second search warrant was executed at 125 Richmond, along with the DEA task force who did a drug search warrant at that location. On March 28th, Detective Rogers spoke to a female in North Carolina who worked at a location. The female said that someone told her about what happened to Alexis. On April 6th, an individual was arrested on a warrant and re-interviewed. On April 6th, the fire department searched the Galena Marina with sonar and a dive team due to information that Alexis may have been put at that location. Over the next few weeks, the fire department also checked the marina at the Alexander Steakhouse and Detweiler. Nothing was found during that time. On April 7th, went to Banner Marsh area and assisted with a private party search of the area for Alexis. Possible human hair was located near a waterway, and it was taken as evidence to be processed. Nothing to indicate this was Alexis's hair. On April 10th, went to waterway in Banner Marsh where the hair was located, and the fire department dive team searched the area and nothing was found. On April 8th, spoke to a former girlfriend of an individual. She wanted to talk to Detective Rogers about a prior abuse case by this person. On April 14th, a individual was re-interviewed at the police department. On April 24th, Detective Rogers attempted to contact a former girlfriend of an individual who told an officer she had information on Alexis. Detective Rogers contacted the female, who stated she didn't have any information and was just spouting off because she is upset with this individual. Again, on April 24th, information of a male from California attempting to get money from April for information on Alexis. Warrant was obtained for the person's Facebook information so he could be identified. Turned out to be a scam. On April 25th, an individual was interviewed at the police department. On April 30th, another individual was interviewed at the police department. On May 7th, Detective Rogers went to Lower Bradley Park and met with a private party search crew who located items in the creek. The items were collected for evidence. May 9th, Detective Rogers spoke to an individual at the Peoria County Jail. On May 20th, the individual was interviewed by Lieutenant Bolin at the police department. On June 9th, detective along with the Peoria County Search and Rescue Team searched several acres in the area around Wheeler Road and Light Body Road in Glassford. Nothing was found. On June 12th, Detective Rogers spoke to an individual with a towing company and alleged person who rented a specific type of vehicle. On June 20th, spoke to a former girlfriend of an individual at the Peoria County Jail who had possible information on Alexis. Information given was hearsay, and she mentioned another person who was listed. Heard that they were at that party on September 23rd, 2017. On July 23rd, Detective Rogers met with an individual who denied being at the party or having any knowledge of Alexis or her whereabouts. On July 25th, received a tip from Crime Stoppers that Alexis was seen in Missouri at a gas station. After investigating that tip, it was unfounded. On August 6th, Peoria County, kind of hard to decipher that. At Peoria County, information was received on an individual who told someone else that they had knowledge of Alexis's whereabouts. On August 15th, followed up on the information received from an individual in East Peoria regarding possibly seeing Alexis. That information was unfounded. On August 20th, Detective Rogers located and interviewed the female who mentioned they had knowledge of Alexis's whereabouts. The female denies ever saying that she knew anything and denies knowing Alexis or any of the people at the party on August 23rd, 2017. On August 27th, so a couple days ago, detectives searched an area along the Dickinson Run Creek, Kickapoo Creek, located near Dickinson Cemetery based on information received from a medium/psychic, and nothing was found. So as you can see from this, we have been actively working the case, and any information that comes in, we follow up on. Detectives have put in hundreds of hours in working this case. Several of the detectives have come in on their days off, their weekends off. They volunteered time to do this. So as I stated before when we first started talking about this, this is something that we are taking very serious, and we're doing all we can to look into the case. So going through the timeline, well, and let me back up just real quick. So a comment was made about, if Peoria Police can't do it, we should request outside resources and for assistance. As I mentioned, going through the timeline, you could see that we have requested assistance from several outside resources, including the FBI, not only the local FBI, but also the FBI out of Chicago, the Sex Trafficking Division. We actually talked to the local FBI again today, and we're going to meet with them again, but we have talked to them. I want to make that clear. We've also obtained assistance from Peoria County Search and Rescue, the Fulton County Sheriff's Office, the Fond du Lac Police Department, who used their boat out on the Illinois River to conduct searches, the Peoria Fire and Rescue, not only their boat, but with their dive team. The Peoria County Coroner's Office, Coroner Jamie Harwood is assisted in this as well. Crime Stoppers, we've been in touch with Crime Stoppers, and they put out at least 2, and I had them run another one today. We will be updating that information, but another Crime Stoppers tip went out today on it, and we had requested to see if Crime Stoppers can raise the amount of the reward. And then also on their own, but the Journal Star, and a lot of times Andy has done it, but has written some articles covering this case as well. So, information is getting out there. Again, like I mentioned, this is an open investigation. It is sensitive. So when you do have questions, there may be questions that I cannot answer, but I'll do the best that I can. And going back to releasing this timeline, that is something that we discussed, and we don't take lightly, but we want the community to know the work that has been involved in this case. We just have to be careful to protect the integrity of the investigation. As far as contact with April, April has Lieutenant Boland's direct phone number. She contacts him a lot of times daily, for sure weekly, at all hours of the day. He has remained open to her. So if she has any questions, if any leads come in, she contacts him directly. So there is communication going on there. I know last night it was said that the police department is not contacting April. That is not the case. We are contacting her. And again, don't get me wrong, I totally understand what she's going through in the sense of looking at it from a parent. It's got to be difficult on her, so I'm not minimizing that at all. So that pretty much covers what I have on Alexis's case. I'll go into questions on this case before I roll into the other accusations that were made last night at council. That way I can kind of evenly flow, and so it can all stay together. So
Are you operating on the premise that she is alive or that she's deceased?
so as of today, right now, we have nothing to indicate that she is deceased. So we are investigating it as a missing person case.
You said that, I think it was back in April, you had a follow-up with the Chicago FBI Sex Trafficking Task Force. Has there been any contact with them since April? Are you in contact with them on a regular basis? Or what's the situation there? How often are you in contact with them, and has it been since April?
So they were given Alexis's information, and she was entered into a national database for missing person. As far, I'll let Lieutenant Bolin answer when the last time we had contact, but after talking to them, giving them the information, if they come across something, then they would reach out to us. But as far as a monthly, weekly, I don't know.
You don't feel
on
it's
that.
incumbent upon the department to do an active follow-up regardless of what they do?
No, my feeling on it, we have talked to them, they have the information in the database, and if they come across something, they're gonna contact us, they're not gonna sit back on it. So if we contact them and say, hey, have you heard this? They're gonna
Is it just a
tell us no.
database search protocol, is that it? Is that what they do?
I don't know exactly what their protocols are as far as how they conduct their investigation. Just as an example, we have had people report that they've seen Alexis on the Strip in Las Vegas. So with that information, we would forward that to them. They would reach their contacts in Las Vegas or wherever they've got out there, and then they would follow up on it from there. Obviously, they have not came back with us that they've had a positive encounter or that they've seen her. So it has kind of led us to believe that that's a dead end. But any information that we get that we think that they can follow up on for us because they can reach out across the country, that's what we do.
Mike, in terms of the name of database, is that an auto thing where, in other words, what I think folks are trying to ask is, do you have to ask folks if they have seen her, or will the data, her being in NamUs, automatically trigger them trying to reach out to you?
NamUs is basically a database for anybody to search, law enforcement and the public included. If a person if they thought that this person was a missing person, they could search in there and find that information. But with the national database that the FBI has, and even the local cities, we enter that into the NCIC system. If anybody was to come across her, they had, if she got arrested, it would run her fingerprints. As far as I know, she's never been arrested here, but it would certainly draw some attention because they would look into that database. If she provided them the correct name and information, then that would trigger a hit, and she would come up automatically as a missing person. And they would be able to investigate it from that point forward.
Are you fairly confident, based on what you've investigated so far, that you have leads that could lead to her? Or what's your level of confidence in
We
finding
haven't
her?
got any direct leads as to where she is at this point. Every lead that we have gotten, we have researched and we have looked into and we put resources on. And so far we haven't come up with anything.
So is it safe to say that you're fairly confident, or you're discouraged? Or you?
It's discouraging to the point that we haven't come up with any credible information to follow up on, as far as the location goes. But we are in the process of trying to work some angles to get that to come to fruition.
Mike, one of the things that I would like to know is, have you guys explored the chance of maybe, or Chief, or Mike here, or Mike too, that this could be linked to maybe Janie Sellers or Mark, because those two have been missing for a year or so too, give or take on the plus and minus side. And while the races are different and they're from the different locations, have you guys checked into that?
We did look into that. when Mark was found, that kind of disputed that theory, based on what we know about that case. But initially, we did fear that there was something more nefarious going on than just a missing person case. But still, we have not had any solid indication to point to the fact that either one of those two people are in fact deceased, when I'm referring to Alexis and Janie Sellers. So we haven't been able to conclude that those are related cases.
What is being done on the Janie Sellers case? Have you guys reached out to the FBI
We
there?
followed about the same course of action as we had with Alexis. We have not gotten the FBI involved in that particular
Why?
case. There's some different tenets in that one. Janie's case is more along the lines of she left home and hasn't been seen of since. She had some issues with substance abuse that could have contributed to her demise, but we can't say that for sure because we have not located her. But we have put forth a lot of resources and a lot of effort to locate her as well.
What about, say, DNA? Have you been running samples that you got in Canton, samples that you got either at the crash, at the landfill,
The DNA
samples that you've gotten at the house? Through
DNA samples that we have submitted to the Morton lab have not been processed yet.
and
So we
when
don't
did
have
you
an idea
send
on
them
that.
to? When did you put them to the Morton Crime Lab?
I can't give you the exact
Alright.
date, but they have been over there for several months. And as we all know in this room, that it takes time to get that stuff processed, and there is a long list of things that need to be processed. So it's in the queue to be processed. It just hasn't made it to that point yet.
Does Miss Scott have DNA that you can match? Because you can find DNA, but if you don't have something to match it first.
We do have DNA samples of hers that we got from her mother.
Okay.
In reference to the escort service that was found on October 17th, are you able to elaborate on that in terms of what was found with that? Because we were hearing reports that it was possibly sexually trafficked. So,
Right. Alexis had a history of being on Backpage, advertising that as an escort, and so obviously that puts you in a certain category of risk whenever you're doing that type of stuff. Obviously, it was an angle for us to look at because is she a missing person? As far as did she willfully leave on her own to go do other things, or did somebody take her? Is she actually being trafficked, as in kidnapped and forced into the sex trade? Those were things that we were exploring. Backpage and the other one, Craigslist, those were basically investigative tools for us at the time, because we could see who was posting their pictures, and it presents a phone number that gives us an opportunity to subpoena the information to see if that's going to result in a lead. Unfortunately, all the information that we had regarding that Facebook stuff was all put in, before she was missing, and nothing since.
According to the timeline, it says April Scott files a missing person report on 9/27, and then the house at 125 Richmond, which is the last place she was seen, was not searched until 10/1. Now that's about 3 or 4 days. Is that, isn't that a lot of time before something could have been cleared from the house? Evidence could have obviously been, dealt with. Is that normal for it to take a couple days like that?
Certainly, if someone was to, there was a 4-day span between when she went missing and when she was reported. So certainly, if something was done nefariously at that location, whoever was responsible for doing it would have had plenty of time to clean things up.
But after, it's still 3 or 4 days before
Right.
you get in there.
And that's before we even know anything about it.
No, I'm talking about from when she filed the report with Officer Irving on 9/27. The house is not searched until 10/1.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about.
No. Obviously, you can't do it when you don't know, but
Right.
you did know.
When
at that
Officer
point.
Irving took the original report, he did go to that location. He did knock on the door and talk to those people.
On what day?
On the 27th, when he made when the report was made.
Why?
We didn't.
Why
as
doesn't it say that here?
detectives,
And it says it down on 10/1.
Well, that was because this is the detective's summaries of his work, not what the patrol people were doing.
Well,
So the original officer that takes the report is gonna do some initial investigation.
so you're saying they were at 125 Richmond within 24 hours of receiving the report?
Correct.
Okay.
Which it does state in here, Officer Irving begins investigating by talking to a couple of people, a
That
couple of
doesn't-
last known people to see her.
But
So
that has
if
nothing
they-
to do with the location, the last,
But what I'm saying is, when Lieutenant Bolin is saying that he went there, we do say that Officer Irving followed up.
The carpet in the mattress, was there any way to tie that carpet and mattress or the remnants that were left of it to the house on Richmond? Anyone
What was
know?
the significance
There-
of the what led you to Fulton County?
I don't really wanna comment on that because that is part of the investigation, but there is a link between that burn pile and the house on 125 West Richmond.
On May 6th, there was an arrest. Somebody was arrested on a warrant. Was that warrant related to this case?
No.
Or just something else random, not associated?
If I remember correctly on that, the person that was arrested was a person that we wanted to talk to in reference to this disappearance. And so, once they're in custody, they don't really have an obligation to say, oh no, I'm not, going down to the police station or anything. So, obviously, they don't have to talk with us if they don't want to, but it gives us an opportunity to say, come on down to the police station, we wanna talk to you, because you are under arrest.
So the warrant would have been related to this case, but not anything that resulted in a complete arrest?
No, the warrant was not related to the case. He had a
No.
separate warrant.
Ah,
He was arrested on the warrant. He was interviewed about this case at the
phenomenal,
station.
got it. Now I'm good.
Has anyone at this party been cleared as suspects? Do you guys?
So, yeah, that's a good question. So, as far as the number of people that have been interviewed, so out of the individuals that were at the party, we've identified 9 individuals. All of them have been interviewed. The cab driver has been interviewed, which was alleged that we had not interviewed the cab driver, but the cab driver has been interviewed. So all 9 have been interviewed. As far as clearing, right now they're still in the process of the investigation, so I can't say that anybody is cleared at this point. And then also I'd like to add that during this case, from start until where we are right now, we've executed 19 search warrants as a part of this investigation.
So you're
But-
saying there were 9 people total at the house that you guys are aware of?
But-
or just that's how many you talked to?
9 that we've interviewed.
Okay.
That was 9 people that we know were at the particular party during the time that she was there. Now, there was people that came and went in the interim,
Okay.
but we know for sure that those people were there, and that all of those people that we know were there have been spoken to and interviewed.
And no one has been cleared yet.
No one's
It's all
there.
still under investigation.
Correct.
How detrimental is something like somebody going missing in the early morning hours of September 23rd and then police not being able to visit any particular scene until 5 days later or 6 days later? That would probably be a little bit difficult in sewing together pieces that would be, as we talked about before, fresh to that particular
Yeah,
matter.
that time delay definitely doesn't help. Usually when you start looking at cases within that 24, 48 hours of trying to get the follow-up, that is very important.
You know
Hey,
that April didn't allow the initial search of Alexis's room?
I know.
Hey, Mike, are you sure on Mark being found? I don't think that Mark has been found.
The one up here on the North Galena Road.
No, the glass.
I was mistaken. I didn't think you were talking about Mark Bohannon.
Okay,
I thought you were talking about the other guy.
okay. I'm just making sure
Yeah,
that
Mark
we're
Bohannon.
clear to everybody.
Glad you checked
Yeah,
that.
Mark
Yeah, I
Bohannon
checked that,
is-
'cause I was a
is-
little off on that.
There's no connection to
I missed something.
that with this.
But what I'm saying is, what are the odds that a small little town like this, and yes, Glassford is X amount of miles from here, but we've had 3 folks go missing for an extended period of time. I can remember in 2005 and 2006 when folks were very, very slow to jump on board the fact that we had a bunch of folks missing, and then Larry Bright was found, and we had women burned up in his backyard. I am not saying that is what is happening here, but has there been any work done to try to see if there are any links?
Well, it's very difficult to put those pieces together with the limited amount of information that we have from each case. But I can tell you that was looked into initially, because when you have two people that are in somewhat the same, for lack of a better term, business and lifestyles, you may want to start looking at drawing conclusions as to how they became missing and who have they been in contact with and what their connections are and if there's any relationship between the two or the people that they all associate with.
So what I would like to know, Mike, is, I mean, I've been talking to you guys about this case for a month and whatever, and why do you think when you talk to April, Scott, when there's been stories on both the local news and in the paper, why are we here right now? What I guess I'm asking is, why do you guys think that people clearly think that you guys have dropped the ball on this? There's a whole bunch of people who think that you guys have done absolutely nothing on this case.
I'll touch on it real quick and then I can pass it off. But, you know, one of the things, like I said before, this type of an investigation, we don't go and release everything that we're doing. So a person may not think that, well, the police aren't doing anything, but on the backside of it, we have officers that are working hundreds of hours and, like I said before, working their days off, volunteering to do stuff. But we don't put that out on the forefront to protect the integrity of the investigation.
When was the last time you had a press conference on this individual? Have you had a press conference on this individual earlier?
I don't believe so.
I think what he's talking about is a communication with the community, and I wanted to follow up with that. Is there a protocol for the department to communicate either through pressers or other means with the community about ongoing cases? Is it just up to public pressure when we saw that last night and we're here today? And what does that mean for people who have no family, who have no resources, who have no nothing? You know, I mean, how do you communicate with the community about these cases? In what fashion? What regular fashion?
So as far as on a regular basis, you know, if we develop information that we feel that could help, you know, we'd by all means get something out. When we first learned about the case, we put out a press release notifying the community that, okay, this person is missing. Any help would be, you know, welcomed by the police department, and we request assistance from the community for any information that they have. And then the detective will run that investigation, and if the detective feels that, okay, you know what, I'm not getting anywhere, or I don't feel that, I feel that it's important to put something out, then we'll definitely put something out on it.
That's all to do with advancing the case from your point of view, but I'm talking about communicating with the community. Is there no protocol within the department about how to do that on a regular basis so you don't have a situation like this?
We do communicate with the family of the victim, but as far as, or I shouldn't say victim, of the person, it could be a victim if we're looking at somebody that is a victim of a crime or a missing person. We're in contact with them on a regular basis. Like I said before, Lieutenant Bolin talks to April constantly. Now, as far as outside of her realm, you know, we don't publicize that on a regular basis. And then Officer Dotson will stay up on the press releases to get the information out there.
You know, one of the things that I would like to know too is going forward now. Obviously, this case is now a big deal. You have brought us here. We're having this press conference Amy
Let
and putting
me
it
stop you
on.
real quick,
Oh,
Andy. This case has always been a big deal.
but it hasn't been
Andy,
a big
hold on
deal
a minute.
for the rest of the city. There's
Andy,
been a
this
small group
case
of people
has
who feel
been a
that
big
way.
deal for the Peoria Police Department. We've worked this case I can't even say it.
That's
We've worked
okay.
this case for several hundreds of hours. Officers have devoted a lot of time into this
So
case.
what are we gonna
take
do-
it, Andy, let me finish. We have put a lot of resources into this case. We are not minimizing this case at all. What we're doing today is putting the information out so that the community knows that everything that we've done on this
So
case.
what are you gonna do moving forward now, so that we don't have to come back in a year, let's say, if she is not found, and you guys have to have another 20-minute recitation of what you have done. What is going to be done now?
We're going to keep moving forward with the case. Like I said before, it is an active investigation, so the detectives are still going to be conducting the investigation. I am still very hesitant on putting out certain information to protect the integrity of the investigation.
As it relates to out-of-state information, as you said, you heard information from Las Vegas and Missouri. The FBI in Chicago was leading that part of the investigation, and they'll come back and report to you. Is that correct?
Yes, if they pick up a lead, then they will report it back to us.
No.
So just to be clear, because there's a lot of folks, there's a lot of confusion out there. You guys have reached out to the FBI. Are they working the case or not?
The FBI is not working the case, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we have talked to the local FBI and the Chicago FBI.
Is there any way, because what I think a lot of local folks here would like is for the FBI to start working the case?
One of the, just as an example, Ms. Allen had gotten contacted by a person through social media who claimed to have captive her daughter. He was trying to extort money out of her. We reached out to the FBI. We put them on it. We also did our own search warrants for the social media pages. We learned that that individual that was running that particular scam had been scamming many people, probably getting their names and information off of Namus or wherever they're getting it from. But it's probably a public site, and they're exploiting people to benefit themselves by extorting them. But we didn't know that that was a scam at the time, because this person, when you read the text and the emails that were being sent, they do a lot of homework on tattoos, they do homework on, and obviously this stuff's on the internet. So if you look at a picture of Alexis Scott on the internet and it shows a tattoo on her shoulder, and I got somebody that I'm claiming to be captive, and I know it's your daughter because she's got this tattoo on her shoulder. But if you dig in deeper and you get more specific with them, then they can't answer those questions. But having said that, they were able to go out to San Jose, California, and they found that this person is doing this to a lot of different people, and it's a scam.
People that do these scams, do they face legal trouble for doing these things?
It depends on where they're at and if they're ever actually caught.
So you said that there was a link between the burn pile and then the residence. Has that
Yes.
person who had access to that mattress been questioned?
Yes.
Okay.
But I get, Mike, what you were saying, but could you say, hey guys, you want to know something? Could you maybe come in here and try to work on this case? Because the FBI does have a profile unit, or at least they happen to have a TV show about that. Is there any way that you guys could make the call? Because I think that is, when you listen to the comments that were made last night, a lot of people wanted to know why they aren't there, because there is a perception that you guys are not willing to use them. And I'm just asking, point blank, is there any way that the FBI could get involved in this?
I think that we have the players involved in the case identified.
Wait, when you mean players, in other words, you guys think you know who did whatever was
We
done.
know who was at the party. And we're pretty confident that the people that are involved in her disappearance, whether she's still alive or she isn't, is stemming from that party and those people involved.
Is the main host of the party, you might have been touching on this, I won't say the name, but the main host of the party, there's reports throughout the community that he was reportedly offered a plea deal on drug charges, and that might have something to do with all this. Is that true or not true?
That person was not at the party, and there is, well, wait a minute.
I'm talking about the host of the party.
No,
Okay.
he was not.
There was no plea deal offered to him in reference to this case,
No.
Or any case?
or any case, well,
Since the time
I'm
of the-
told that he's in a proper agreement or something with his drug case. But as far as this Alexis Scott disappearance case,
That has nothing to do with it?
what do you mean by does?
I mean, there was any plea deal would have any bearing on this case?
Well,
Information he would give up or not?
It certainly could, that may become part of his plea deal, but we'll have to wait and see what happens with that.
Is there anything the public can do from here out, or do you think all that information is gonna come from those 9 people that you've already interviewed?
Well, the information, if they have it, if they would share it with the police department, it would be greatly appreciated, because that's how this case is gonna be solved ultimately, is by persons of knowledge sharing that information with us. It's probably not going to be necessarily a forensics case, just for the simple fact that we know she was at the party, and any DNA that was there is gonna say, yeah, she was at the party. It may not indicate what happened to her or anything like that.
If we could do one more question on Alexis's case, and then we'll move on to the other accusations, because I know I want to cover that as well.
I've also got a report out of the community that one of the high officials in this case is actually related, either by marriage or otherwise, or marriage or by blood, to the family of the people who are hosts, the 125 Richmond. Is that true? Is there any kind of familial connection between this person who is high up in the case? And if so, does that pose a possible conflict of interest?
To my knowledge, there's no relation of anyone
Of
that's
any-
involved in the case, no.
Okay.
So, okay, if we can move on to the next. So, last night at council as well, an individual by the name of Mark Jones came to the podium and accused 3 police officers of, I use air quotes, of raping a female. And the way it sounded to me is that he was referring to Peoria police officers as being the suspects in this case. And then he also made an accusation that he was at Banner Marsh around 9 p.m. and saw a Peoria police officer with a person that was 13 years old in the vehicle. So after council, I went up and talked to him because, number one, I take those accusations very serious. And if someone is going to stand up and make an accusation like that, I want to know about it and have proof so that I can follow up on it. Because obviously it's not going to be tolerated, but again, it is a very serious accusation. So I talked to him, and in talking with him, I was able to verify that he was not talking about Peoria police officers. He did refer to police officers, but not Peoria police officers specifically. And then he apologized for any miscommunication on that. And then as far as the accusation of an officer at Banner Marsh, he said that there was a white vehicle at Banner Marsh with the same type of plates that we have. And I asked him to specify what he means by that. And he said that we had M plates, which it's the municipal plates. And so I explained to him that the M plates, any municipality can have M plates. And I asked him to describe the person. He said he knew it was a Peoria officer because they were in a detective type of outfit or uniform. And I explained to him that we do not have detective cars that are white and that have M plates. The only white Impalas that we have are patrol lieutenant cars, and patrol lieutenants would not be in that area. So we got that cleared up as well, and he said that it could possibly be Canton, but he doesn't know. So I just want to get that out there to the public that the accusations that were made were unfounded. So.
If not misguided. What are you hoping comes out of our little gather up here today and this information that you've shared? What are you hoping for?
You know, hopefully, if obviously somebody out there knows something. There are several people at the party, and somebody knows something, and if we could, you know, just request for the public to come forward and give us the information. Like I said before, we're following up on everything, but just the request for the community assistance, and hopefully this will reach someone and they say, you know what, it's been almost a year, you know, so it's been long enough, and I'm going to step forward and help out.
How aggressively are you pressing these 9 individuals who were at this party?
They all have been talked to multiple times. So, as far as being aggressive with them, I would say that we're maintaining contact with them, getting with them, seeing if they remember anything else, if they've heard anything else, if there was anything that we need clarified from another statement from someone else, or some information that we got down the road through, whether it be a tip or an informant or whatever, and going back and touching base with those people and trying to follow back up with them.
Short of a body, what do you need to switch this case from a missing person search to a missing person recovery?
If we can positively identify the fact that she is deceased, then it would flip the script from being a missing person to a homicide case. What it would take to actually charge that case would be something for the state's attorney's office to review and comment on. And obviously we would follow up on any information that we had at that point and push it towards the homicide direction and see if we can make some charges of it. But ultimately, it would fall on the state's attorney's office to determine what evidence they're going to need to make a prosecutable case.
Are there any updates on the Janie Sellers case?
There is no updates on hers other than we're continuing to investigate it, and we were in contact with the mother of her just as of a day or two ago.
Are you putting in the same amount of time and work on Janie's case as you are on this case?
There's a separate detective assigned to that case.
Right, but Mike here Mike here is the head of all of these detectives.
It depends on, you know, what information they receive and how much they follow up on. We've been several cities around the area in regards to that investigation. We've talked to several people outside the city in reference to that investigation. So we are putting forth a lot of effort into that as well. It hasn't gotten the notoriety, obviously, that the Alexis Scott case has gotten. One of the things in Alexis Scott's case is that there's a huge community involvement. There's a Facebook page that's got like 3,600 or more members to it. They're routinely organizing their own search parties, and so there's a lot more local community activity out there as opposed to the Janie Sellers.
Some of the flyers have been
How tough is it to work this case? To work this case, to work the Janie Sellers case, whatever. I mean, how difficult are a missing persons case? And I ask that because cops, people who do your stuff, want to know how things work. They want to know what the answer is. This case has been going on for 11 months and one week. How tough is that for you guys? And I'm asking that not to say poor you, but is there any amount of fatigue that is taking place? Are you guys getting sick of working it?
You know, obviously these guys, the detectives, they want to find the missing folks, right? So, I mean, I'm sure there's some frustration on their part. I mean, they've tried, as you guys see from the timeline, there's a lot of work been done. I can tell you I was a detective for a long time, and I've never seen so much work done in a missing persons case before.
You've never seen?
19 search warrants. I've never seen 19 search warrants done in a missing person case before.
Is there any
So-
way to give numbers as to how long a missing person case for Peoria usually lasts until some kind of resolution? Is there any empirical data on that, or what's your just feeling?
You know, I mean, we've had obviously missing person cases that have gone this long. We've had a lot of them that are very short term. You know, they'll call and report somebody missing, and a day later, 2 days later, they come home. So, I mean, it runs the full gamut of how long these cases can last. But I think you see in this one, you know, we've done work at the beginning of the case, and on the timeline, we've done work very recently on the case. So it's not like there's gaps in here to where, you know, the first 2 weeks we worked really hard on the case, and then we took a couple months off, and then we worked again. I think the chief's point on the timeline is I think you can easily see that we have worked this case, the detectives have worked this case day in, day out since she's been missing, and will continue to work the case until she's found.
All right, thank you for coming out, we appreciate it.
All right, thanks, guys. Please stop this. I can't figure out this.
Anybody